we'll just go ahead and get started here. This webinar will be recorded. That way everyone has access to it in the future. Thanks for joining us for Starting and Maintaining Your Business Credit with Stephanie Cote from Oweesta. This is part 2 of our March webinar series on credit. We had one on the 7th, and that one was best practices for building your personal credit. That recording will be available on our website next week. And I'm Dawn LeBeau. I'm the program officer here with Akiptan. I'm Akiptan and Oweesta from the Cheyenne River Lakota Nation, where we're located. And my role is to manage and expand services here at Akiptan. One question we always get is, what does Akiptan mean? So it is the Lakota word for working together cooperatively in a joint effort. So we're a certified Native CDFI, community development financial institution, and we're located in Eagle Butte, South Dakota on the Cheyenne River Lakota Nation, and we serve clients nationwide. So our goal is to transform the Native agriculture and food economies by delivering creative capital, leading paradigm changes, and enhancing producer prosperity across Indian country. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our presenter today. Let me just pull up the bio. Okay. So like I said, we have Stephanie Cote here, and I'm sorry, last time in the recording, I mispronounced your name. So sorry for that. But she is the current Senior Programs Officer and Financial Education and Asset Building Officer at Oweesta Corporation. She's been with Oweesta since January of 2012. Previously, she was the Communications Manager, Office and Administrative Manager, and an independent consultant. During that time, Ms. Cote has gained significant knowledge of the Native community development financial institutions. In her career, Ms. Cote worked with First Nations Development Institute, Cilio Foundation, the Native CDFI Network, Pa'ulach Fund, sorry if I mispronounced that, Longhouse Media, and the Northwest Native Development Fund. She's a master trainer for the Building Native Communities Suite of Curriculum, a certified HUD housing counselor, Credit as an Asset Master Trainer, Credit Smart Curriculum Instructor, Neighboring Works American Certified in Home Ownership Counseling, and a certified professional coach through the Coaching for Transformation program with Leadership That Works. Ms. Cote is currently serving as a member on the Clearinghouse CDFI Native American Advisory Board and the State of Colorado's Office of Financial Empowerment Advisory Board. In her spare time, she's a fitness instructor, and she facilitates a range of fitness mediums from weightlifting to cardio and yoga and meditation. Ms. Cote attained her BA in Comparative Literature in French and English with a minor in Native American Studies from the University of Michigan. And she is Potawatomi and Odawa of Michigan from the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians. So with that, I will go ahead and pass it over to Stephanie.
Thank you for reading the very long bio. If you want to know more, you can hit me up on LinkedIn. I can drop that in the chat. But thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Dawn. It's my pleasure to join you today. As Dawn had mentioned, this is a part of a credit series, and the first part of building credit, and we'll learn why in the next few slides. It's really important to start with personal credit. So I believe the slides will all be available, so definitely check it out. I don't cover all the slides in part 1 because that's a 3-day training. I tried to give the best bits and pieces from that. And if you want to know more, in May, we will be hosting that 3-day training. It's everything and more that you'd ever want to know about credit. And that'll be May something through something, I believe. No, not May. Yeah, the first week of May. Sorry. I think it's like the 3rd or 2nd. Anyway, Feel free to join Oweesta Corporation. All of our trainings are free and open to the public. So we'd love to have you. And like I said, it gets a little tedious. There's a lot of repetition, but it's best practices in building and maintaining your credit. And if you're a practitioner, it'll help you with your people you're serving. So as you see on the screen today, we're going to talk about small business, and I've taken the best parts of and want to credit the Credit as an Asset small business training. So this is built by Credit Builders Alliance. The previous one was as well. And just want to credit them, though I am taking the
Hey,
best parts.
There's a little bit of a lag.
And
I don't know if I'm the only one seeing that.
disclaimer that this is the professionals in that manner. This is just for information purposes only.
Am I the only one seeing a little bit of a lag in the video?
Oh.
Okay, yep, Stephanie, there's a lag. You've paused completely. Let's see, we might have even lost. Nope, there you are.
Okay, there was a lag. Sorry,
Cool. Nope, you're back.
Feedback. Okay.
Okay.
So as we mentioned, this is Credit Builders Alliance material. Just wanted to cite my source. So if you have any questions, I'll provide my email in the chat as well. Feel free to reach out with any questions. So this training is going to cover, we're going to learn about that connection between personal and business credit, the business credit landscape, what that looks like, how to read those business credit reports and understand your business credit scores. Things that we will not be covering because of time's sake is steps to improve your business credit. Those are covered in the slides. I definitely welcome anyone to check out the slides. And then how to work with entrepreneurs. So if you're a practitioner, there's a lot of information in there on how to help your clients. So more in the slides, but ones we will not be covering today. The training does not cover overall incorporating or establishing a business. So if you're incorporating a new business or establishing one, definitely reach out to Akiptan or your local native CDFI to help build your business in a strong way. And then budgeting, forecasting, P&L statements, other financial aspects. This training does not cover that. Again, reach out to your small business assistants, maybe a CDFI or the Small Business Administration. And I will self-admit I am not the best with P&L statements. I can read them, but creating them, not the best. And writing a business plan. So all of these fun aspects of how to cultivate a thriving business, we're just focusing on credit today. So some objectives, we're going to understand the importance of credit and explore commercial reporting and various business credit products. So today, I just want to note that we're going to be using the term business and commercial credit interchangeably, and then counselor rather than coach or practitioner, and entrepreneur or participant in referring to someone that's receiving the services. So just a few mindful things to keep in mind. Today, we're going to focus on small business credit because ownership requires many skills and areas of focus, but business credit usually receives less attention than any topics like business and marketing. So it is a confusing, and I like to refer to it as like the wild west of credit, it's important to understand this as a tool for business development. So let's check into some small business credit realities. We live these and know these if we run and operate a small business. So over 99% of all US firms are small businesses, which might come as a surprise. And this is because the small business is an independent business with less than 500 employees. So just keeping that in mind, that 99.9 are identified as a small business because of this definition of less than 500 employees. And since 2000, it's been responsible for 65.1% of the new job creation and generating 44% of all US economic activity. Many small businesses can be defined as micro businesses, and this is between 1 and 9 employees. And there are, many businesses. All of this information is coming from the US Small Business Administration. Something to highlight is that 20% of small businesses fail within the first year. So something we know, 50% will survive until year 5, and only about 30% will survive 10 years. So why about 29% of businesses fail? Because they run out of cash, but 82% close due to cash flow problems. Cash represents money a business has on hand, while their cash flow represents the money coming in and going out of the business. So how does credit help with this? Business credit is one way that a small business can navigate and work to stay afloat in this environment. It can help entrepreneurs address potential operating challenges, including that cash flow maintenance during slow times or down months. It can provide potential growth opportunities as they're available and help purchase the necessary equipment, inventory, and technology to grow and maintain the business. So think of small business as a cooler climate that depends on foot traffic. In the winter months, it can be slower with more limited cash flow. An entrepreneur might draw a line of credit in January to pay the employees and make rent and cover immediate expenses. It can be paid off in the spring when the customers are back and the cash flow is steadier. So you might experience this ebb and flow also in the farming industry or ranching, where you have certain seasons where you have a huge influx of money because that's in your operating season. And then in those colder climates, we might see, we don't have that influx of money. So having access to credit can help in these times. There is that catch-22 though, similar to personal credit, is I can't get credit cards because I don't have good credit, and I don't have good credit because I don't have credit cards. So we want to be mindful that building and maintaining credit history, you need access to credit in the first place. So just want to acknowledge that this is something that a lot of, especially our minority business owners, faces. I'm not able to get the credit because I don't have access, and I don't have access because I have credit. Just noting that historically marginalized business owners have multiple challenges. So we might be underbanked. We see that especially in our rural areas, with the lack of access to brick and mortar institutions, then facing cultural differences, navigating a credit system, experiencing gaps in your financial history, having bias and discrimination in the scoring and underwriting processes and algorithms, and then experiencing limited services due to different cultural approaches. So we want to recognize this. And then I also want to shout out to our CDFIs like Akiptan that are in place to mitigate these historical challenges, historical and current challenges. Here we're going to look at credit as an asset, CBA, credit builders lines. They look at credit through an asset-based lens. So this is just shifting that negative viewpoint of messages that credit equals debt or inability to access. But here we're just going to look at it through the lens of like, how can credit assist me in my business journey? So here CBA has developed this roundabout imagery for your credit business building journey, because a lot of times we're going to have to circle through these different phases of the business credit life cycle. Today, we're going to focus on step 1 and step 2. And as I mentioned, step 3 is going to be more for developing a little bit further your mature practices. And then step 4 is going to be thrive. I was hoping to get it set up today. If you're interested, we go through all step 1 and step 2, and you're like, oh, I'd really like to hear step 3 and 4, I'll be hosting the full training in May of this Credit Builders Alliance small business credit curriculum. So more information, I'll share that with Dawn. If you're interested in learning more of step 3 and step 4, please join us. It'll be free and open to the public. Before we dive into this credit map, let's start out with a knowledge check. So we're going to play myth or fact, and feel free to type it in the chat, or if you don't know any of these, feel free to, you can take a shot in the dark, or you can just hang out and see what the correct answer is. Awesome. Okay, so here is myth or fact. My personal credit has no impact on my business credit. We have one answer in there. And if you got the slides in advance, then you'll be saying, Stephanie, the answers are on the slides. But if you don't have them, awesome. You can answer to yourself and take a guess. So this is a myth that personal credit will not impact it has a very large impact on the business credit at all stages. So your business credit and personal credit will be intertwined. When I open my business, I will automatically get business credit. Myth or fact? When I open my business, I'll automatically get that business credit. Correct, that's a myth. So just like personal credit, business credit depends on an account being reported to a credit reporting agency. We talked about that in our first session, and similar, it has to be reported. And like I had mentioned, it's like, we'll find out a little bit more, but there aren't a ton of reporting agencies happening or businesses being reported to credit bureaus. So something to look out for. Just like in the sense I was telling my friend yesterday, she assumed that everything was reported to the credit bureaus, and like, oh, you have to request your rent to be reported to the credit bureaus. She just assumed, oh, utilities, and like, oh, actually it's only your credit cards. If you happen to have a credit card that is reported, most of them are. Similarly, businesses in that same field. Entrepreneurs, oh, I clicked the slide. Yes, that's a myth. So myth is entrepreneurs can only get business loans from banks or credit unions. This is a myth because they're just like personal credit. You can get options from nonprofit lenders, such as Akiptan, government entities, or online lenders. Oh, yes, and of course there are predatory business lenders out there. Oh no, I double clicked again. Banks will not consider my loan application if my business is too small. So I clicked, but it is a myth. So micro businesses and small businesses might not qualify for all products, but banks are still willing to work with small and micro businesses. It just means that you might end up with a smaller loan. And then finally, all business loans are reported to the business credit agencies. I already gave it to you in an earlier one, but this is a myth. So they have to be reporting to the credit products, and they don't necessarily have to be reporting at all. So it just depends on the lender and how their systems are set up. Okay, so another knowledge check. We have how many business credit scores can one individual have? Is there a 1 business credit score, 3 from each credit bureau, no more than 20, or too many to count? Thanks for answering, Dawn.
Stephanie, I
Okay.
think there might be a problem with the chat. I'm trying to troubleshoot it in the background here, but
Okay.
yeah, people have been trying to answer, so sorry.
Oh no, sorry about that, folks. So I'll go through the answer then. You're like screaming into the mic. The answer is this. Okay, business credit scores. There are so many. If you followed the first session, you learned that there are hundreds of scoring models. Similar to business, there are hundreds of business scores that you can have. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the later slides. Lots of options. Lots of different organizations are doing scoring models. So here's a knowledge check question with a case study. So Julia has a photography business. She used her debit card to pay for a new camera. Where will this be reported? Is it her business report, her personal credit report, both business and consumer, or neither? So this is a big misconception. We got it right in the chat, is it's not reported to either, because credit cards withdraw money from a bank account rather than a credit account. So it's not going to be reported to the credit bureaus. And here, name 1 business credit reporting agency. You might know all 3. Here for this, these are for businesses. So a little bit different. With personal, we've got Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. But with business, we have Dun & Bradstreet. You might know as the, you might get a DUNS number for a business. So they have they're a credit reporting agency for businesses. Experian Business and Equifax Business. TransUnion is focusing just on personal credit at this time. Okay, so we're going to turn back and dive into step 1. In this stage, we're going to make the connection between business and personal credit. We'll look at an overview of business credit, and there are a few case studies that we'll round out this session with. So the importance of business credit. Business credit can open doors to other necessary components of business development and growth. This includes short-term wants and needs, like providing options for business credit products, acquiring equipment, like we've mentioned, maybe hiring staff, providing marketing, or funding for marketing, and or renting an office space or storage. It can also help in long-term needs that aren't initially on the business's radar. And this could include qualifying for other business opportunities or government contracts, especially if you need a match, or attracting future investors, managing working capital to respond to those low business seasons or unexpected shocks, like a recession that we just saw, or a natural disaster, or even updating current equipment or technology or other business expenses. But why can't entrepreneurs just rely on their own personal credit? Business building credit allows entrepreneurs to separate the personal and business finances and credit. And this matters because the business should be paying its expenses out of its own operating funds rather than the entrepreneur's personal account. This helps reduce that personal risk if a business slows down. And if finances are merged, business struggles can impact the individual and vice versa. Having large business accounts on a personal credit report could lead to higher debt to income ratios, which can lead to personal credit needs being rejected because the individual appears to be overwhelmed with debt, even if it belongs solely to the business. Ultimately, business credit reveals more about the business's financial and credit health rather than the entrepreneurs. Separating the two, however, is easier said than done. Personal credit history may be required as part of the application for a business's credit, especially early on. And the business credit may be backed by personal assets or collateral or even a personal guarantee. And if an account is reported on both the consumer and the commercial credit bureaus, any potential problems of repayment can impact both of those, personal and credit. So starting the conversation and process of credit building is just as important as technical assistance. And we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our entrepreneurs throughout the life of the business journey. So why might entrepreneurs not focus on credit immediately? There are a lot of answers to this question. So just it's not a high priority, especially if they're able to meet those cash flow needs right at the beginning. Not making the connection between starting a business or needing credit or a credit score, or maybe having that low personal credit or low score or no personal credit, and then paying for cash up front. This is something that's common. So just know that if you're not taking out business credit, that's okay. I know places like Akiptan do offer business credit, and you can take out loans, but just know that if you're not taking them out, that you're not alone. And yeah. And thanks so much. Limited education about credit can also prevent accessing that business credit. But while business credit is something that should be thought about as early as possible, some entrepreneurs are in a better position to start thinking about it than others. An entrepreneur may be ready for business credit building opportunities if they have a registered business or a licensed business. Generally, this is going to be through the Secretary of State. Clear expenses that could be financed, such as inventory rent or just an ongoing purchase. Short or long-term growth plans, and they want to further separate that personal and business financing. And the capacity to handle existing accounts and or the ability to take on and make on-time payments. So just like personal credit building, business credit building relies on that on-time payment. So I know there were like 3 slides in there last time about make your payments on time. So the same with business credit building. But business credit building isn't always an entrepreneur's on their radar, even when they could be a good candidate for it. Consider how you can tie business credit into larger conversations about short, medium, and long-term goals. How is a small business success tied back to credit needs and availability? But while small businesses can bring lots of rewards, they can also come with a lot of risks, including those related to credit. Conversations might also focus on the entrepreneur's financial or credit situation. So definitely, if you're an entrepreneur in the room right now, think about how is my personal credit? What do I need to focus on first, and then shift to my business? And then, are there any financial circumstances involving the business? If it's already operating, does it have credit under a different name? Is the business staying on top of payments? It's important to recognize that some businesses might not want to or need additional financing outside of being able to cover those unexpected events or unnecessary expenses. And then before applying for credit, entrepreneurs should carefully consider both the risks and rewards, as well as those associated with potential credit products. Counselors should consider discussing how applying or taking out new business credit can impact their personal and business credit, the larger monthly budget planning, and or backup or contingency plans if the entrepreneur runs into problems with repayments. So acknowledging any ramifications that they can't ultimately pay their debts. Answers to these questions might help point to whether or not an entrepreneur is ready for business credit building. And in some cases, it might be not yet. Some entrepreneurs might need to focus on other areas of the business before pursuing that business credit. So they might have a great idea, but haven't figured out how to turn the idea into an actual business plan. They might have necessary money, not have the necessary money to run the business, or don't have the ability for potential business accounts and payments. So thinking again to that catch-22, if an entrepreneur's attention, if they need to focus first on the personal credit. So if they don't have a score at all, they're not going to be able to access that business credit. But like I had mentioned before, if you are an unscored individual, you can, it takes as little as 6 months to get to a prime or near prime score with just one active account. So it doesn't mean that they're not ready to ever take out business credit. It just might be not right now situation. Do realize that some questions, especially about finances, accounting, and registration, are outside of, well, at least outside of my expertise. So seek out, if you are an entrepreneur and need those personal assistance questions answered, to bring in that professional. Keep in mind that these are added costs, but there might be free options. So contacting your SBA, the Small Business Administration, or getting in touch with your local CDFI, especially Akiptan, if you're in the agriculture business, to help put you in touch with the right professional assistance. One related decision on how an entrepreneur plans to legally structure their business. So here, options may vary by state or industry, and they'll have impacts on the tax rate, separation of finances, and requirements for your incorporation. So a lawyer who understands the nuances of these types of structures and specific registration requirements might be the best option to assist you on your business journey. But from a business credit standpoint, lenders may elect to extend credit and report on it for different types of business structures. They may have specific requirements for which type of business incorporations they will fund and or report. Regardless, if they often want to see some sort of legal registered business, and some options are on the screen here. So sole proprietorship means there's no separate legal entity. And partnership, which means it's owned by 2 or more individuals. Corporation, which can help limited liability of their owners. and then a limited liability corporation or LLC, which may have 1, 2, or more owners and are governed by state laws. Other conversations that we might have as we're talking about accessing business credit. Here, we want to understand that separating business and personal accounts can help with accounting and tax preparation. Separating accounts can provide a clear picture of both the business finances and the entrepreneur's finances, and can help protect the personal finances if the business ultimately runs into trouble. The separation is especially true as commercial lenders often ask for both business and personal financials as part of their underwriting applications. They want to see separate accounts and separate activity from those accounts. Likewise, as an entrepreneur, you want to think about the use or how lenders underwrite business credit products. So having a registered business and a business bank account, lenders might want to see if the business has monthly budget and profit and loss statements, monthly business debt to monthly business income statements, partially because while the business may require credit, it might also make sure that it's not overextending itself and taking on too much unneeded credit up front, especially when the cash flow is slow. And some months are projected to be a little leaner than others. And then that 12-month cash flow projection to provide a trajectory of where the business intends to go. These are things that might be required on that business application. Many of the financial components are displayed in the documents a lender requests. These might include those financial and tax documents for the business and possibly even the entrepreneur themselves. And it can include multiple years of past records plus future income projections, organizational paperwork like incorporation documents, EIN registration, operating agreements, and potentially even that business plan. So this paperwork might not all be required or even needed immediately. However, it can be exceptionally beneficial down the road. So it's a good idea to start saving it all together along with any new documentation or updates to prevent credit application processes being delayed down the line. So we think about how the pandemic kind of unfolded really fast right away. A lot of lenders, if you've taken credit and you understand those 5 C's of credit, this is going to be that conditions. They pulled in the reins. And if you are able to have all of these documents right away, you're more likely as a business to get that funding. So even though we focus as entrepreneurs on our passion and what we do best, managing our businesses is equally as important. So keeping all of these documents handy for that just in case scenario when we might need to access credit is really important. Let's take a look at a case study. So here we're going to meet Omar. Omar sets up an appointment for business counseling. He's been a mechanic at a large dealership for 10 years and excels at what he does. His job is frequently busy and he wishes he could have better control of his work schedule and spend more time with his kids. He has a steady stream of regular customers he believes would follow him to his own shop. And while he knows owning a business might be difficult, he knows he has the skills to succeed. This is still a new idea though, and he's never really thought about owning his own business, but the idea excites him and he wants to learn more about what it'll take to run his own business. He's not really sure about the next steps or how he'd even afford the business. Omar admits that the credit world is new to him and it's intimidating. Though he has both a checking and savings account, he's more comfortable using cash and money orders. He wants to help figure out a plan for how he could start up his own successful garage. So here we want to ask, is Omar ready for credit building? So while business credit building can be an eventual next step for there are some other foundational steps Omar needs to take before accessing and building his business credit. And it could be establishing and building his personal credit, maintaining those bank accounts. So when he first accesses business credit, they'll want to see that he's able to manage his own accounts, creating that business plan, setting business goals, establishing that realistic timeline. Maybe he'll change his mind once he realizes all the steps that are needed. He'll want to meet with a personal finance counselor while he's continuing to meet with that business counselor. And if and when he's ready, he needs to establish and register his business and obtain an EIN. So let's take a look at one more entrepreneur. So this one's going to be Piper. So she wants to open up a popsicle stand for her friends at a local farmer's market. She goes in for some business counseling, and she shares she's got a bank account and some savings, but she doesn't have a business account. And you pull her credit, or she gets her credit pulled, and it's a 640, which is it's not horrible, but it's not great. And so here, looking at Piper, we want to ask some questions of what are the short and long-term business goals? Is she just going to stay at the farmer's market? Where does she see it growing? She's looking at turning it into full-time income, but she's only at the farmer's market, so that's seasonal. So she's looking at a food truck option. What would she focus on first? So she has some business to do, or some work she needs to do on her personal before she can start her business. She also needs to register her business, get that EIN set up, get that business checking account, just to make sure that everything's separate before applying for her business credit. And then what would she use the business credit for? There's lots of options, sky's the limit. She doesn't have anything right now. So it could be inventory, stuff for designing a logo. Maybe she's going to get a food truck to take to the farmer's market. So she's got a lot of food for thought in this process. So we're wrapping up the planning phase. I know I have 20 minutes left. So here we want to focus on goals as an entrepreneur before we access credit. Separating out our personal finances from our business, and remembering that personal credit is checked when your lenders are making those decisions for your business. So your business might be a-okay, looking great, but first accessing that credit, they're going to look at your personal. So let's move on to establishing real quick, and then I will save 5 minutes for Q&A. So some steps we're going to focus on in the next few slides are going to be learning more about what commercial products are available to help build that business credit, and then identifying what might be a good option as an entrepreneur. And we're going to see a lot of similarities around personal credit, so I'll try and keep that brief. So same, you want to keep those active on-time trade lines, have those trade lines reported to the credit bureaus. So this helps establish that credit history as a business. And then products should be paired with educational support. So I know Akiptan Dawn here is a part of the programs, ensuring entrepreneurs succeed with the proper technical assistance and training. So making sure that whatever you access, that you have that extra support. Reporting is a key component to commercial credit building. So let's talk about how this works. We mentioned before that a lender wants to report their consumer or commercial data, and it's they're going to determine whether it's going to be reported and to who they're going to report that data to. Each consumer and commercial credit reporting agency has different requirements for approval, and lenders want to report, or where lenders report to, and the data furnishers. So it's twofold. The lender has to be approved by the CRA before they're able to take that data. So making sure that they're able to furnish the data to the CRA is important. So this is why not all lending agencies are reporting to credit agencies. They have to be approved. So as I mentioned before, there are different ones. TransUnion is sticking with just the personal credit. They're going to be a personal credit bureau. And then Equifax and Experian have expanded. They've got their business lines as a credit reporting agency. And then Dun & Bradstreet is the business credit only reporting agency. So just like personal credit, you'll want to know that, yes, business accounts may be reported to the consumer credit reporting agencies, and the borrower must be given notice of. So they're not going to report unless, or they'll let you know if they are reporting. So some smaller loans may be directly made to the entrepreneur for the business purposes without a formal guarantee or even a business attached. Reporting can instead help the entrepreneur build personal credit, which may be necessary for that future business credit. And if the entrepreneur has signed a personal guarantee to pay commercial products, the accounts can show up on personal credit reports. So where we want to keep them separate, sometimes they do end up on that personal credit report, depending on the type of loan that's being taken out. So what does it mean to personally guarantee a product? A personal guarantor, it promises to pay the debt if the primary borrower, such as the business, defaults on their obligation. So think of this as personal liability for a product. A guarantor is different than a cosigner and have no claim to the asset purchased by the borrower. A personal guarantee is the guarantor's legal promise to repay the credit issued by their business. And in signing a personal guarantee, a borrower is agreeing that their personal assets may serve as collateral if the business defaults. So as a business, it's important to understand that personal guarantee. So you don't want your personal assets repossessed. Some creditors may choose to report guarantors and entrepreneurs who are personally liable for their business accounts to the consumer bureaus. Others may not. The important takeaway is that the guarantors may see commercial products appear on personal credit reports. Creditors want to report to the credit bureaus that must adhere to the FCRA, or Fair Credit Reporting Act. So taking steps to promote privacy, accuracy, and integrity of the customer data, notifying customers in advance at the time they begin credit reporting, and notifying customers before reporting derogatory information for the first time. However, important thing to know is that the FCRA does not extend to commercial reporting on a business. It only covers consumer borrowers. That's why I say this is kind of the Wild West. So commercial reporting, meanwhile, they have fewer regulations. And I don't really like using the term as a native Wild West because of all of the horrible sordid history we have with it, but it's this unregulated place where a lot of different things are happening, and it's not always in our entrepreneurs and consumers' favors. And sadly, the FCRA is only regulating consumer as opposed to commercial reporting. But one thing to keep in mind is that they don't have sensitive information like your social security numbers or your date of birth. Lenders use customer data to underwrite, but must follow those relevant FCRA provisions. So just know that your consumer data is protected under the FCRA, even in business underwriting. However, there may be other relevant legislation impacts to both consumer and commercial products, as we see in the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, Regulation Z, and Service Member Civil Relief Act. So we're going to check back in with Piper and see how her plans are. So she comes back, she's drafted that business plan, and she's making money hand over fist at the farmer's market, but she still needs to purchase supplies. She doesn't have any marketing. Now she's boosted her credit up to 700. So things are looking pretty good. She's taken the next necessary steps. So here she's incorporated, she's Piper's Pop and Popsicles, she's registered with the IRS, she received her EIN, and she's opened up and started depositing money into that separate business account. She rounded up the paperwork when it comes to applying for products, but that's where she's a little stuck. She's trying to figure out what product is best for her. So let's take a look and see what types of small business products are out there. While there are a lot of products, not all are a good fit for every business or entrepreneur. So Oweesta and CBA doesn't, and I'm sure Akiptan doesn't endorse any specific credit product today. So these are just examples of what you might consider. Today, we're going to look at 4 business building credit products, and they're only going to build business credit if they're being reported. So sometimes they aren't, but it's important that when you're accessing credit to ask where the information, where is going to be reported to credit bureaus. So here, let's look at a few of these in terms of businesses. So of course, we all know personal credit cards. Maybe we have too many or too few, but similar to that, personal credit card is going to provide access to revolving funds that can be drawn down as needed. So you'll have a set amount. Let's say you got a business credit card and you have $10,000. You can borrow up to that amount and you pay it off monthly. And if you joined us for session 1, you'll learn more about how to handle revolving loan credit cards or revolving loan things. Okay. Credit cards are less ideal for those making large purchases they'll need to pay off, and they may carry restrictions around credit limits and interest rates. So just like the personal credit, credit cards are easy to overuse. Banks and credit unions will offer credit cards. Some fintech or financial technology or online lenders have started offering them. So these are good for businesses with high transaction and usage. They tend to have lower rates and higher limits for those large corporations. Standard business cards, they're going to look like personal credit cards. They can be secured or unsecured and have varying terms or limits. And then finally, store branded or vendor specific credit cards can be beneficial if you are a store that purchases from a specific business or company, like a box store or a gas station. Or if you're like a business owner and really utilize Costco for a lot of your shopping, it might be beneficial to get the enterprise Costco card. So some business credit cards report to bureaus, the consumer bureaus rather than the commercial bureaus. So it's important to understand or to know where they're reporting to. And also important to know, like, am I using this for, if we're using Piper as an example, is she buying her big truck with it, or is she just buying a few things, like popsicle sticks? But here we want to know, like, it'll be a good fit for businesses with regular budgeted expenses and can be paid off every month, just like a personal credit card. You want to make sure that it's paid off in full each month. Otherwise, you carry those interest payments. They can be good for products, ongoing expenses rather than the one-time purchases, and are better to be paid up. One-time purchases that are better off in a loan or installments. And some businesses may look to credit cards for emergency or backup financing. So keeping those active for that just in case scenario. And then business credit cards can also be beneficial for those with subscriptions or smaller reoccurring ongoing payments. So if, like, the business is using something monthly, I'm trying to think of a subscription that a business would use. I'm like, no, they wouldn't use Netflix, but something like that that's reoccurring and small. A credit card would be good for that use. Vendor credit. So this is a trade or supplier credit. So if you're bigger than just going to Costco and buying your stuff, here invoicing is the most common form. Suppliers let businesses purchase goods and issue them an invoice for the payment. This is generally 15, 30, or 60 days from delivery. And they'll extend short-term business or credit to the business. It's important to know that vendor credit is sometimes not reported to credit bureaus. So finding vendor credit, consider existing suppliers or vendors that businesses will work with. So office supply stores, printing companies, and even some gas stations. Small local vendors might be easier to work with and less likely to require that in-depth application. And larger vendors have stronger qualifying requirements, and they might likely report. So I know we're coming up on time. I've had a short story around vendor credit, but Dawn typed in the chat. We're going to go a little bit over. If you have any questions, type them in the chat. But I'll try and round out this in just the next few moments. So here, vendor credit is good for those new businesses looking for longer relationships. It's good if you need equipment, inventory, or supplies regularly and in quantity. So my partner has a business and he extends vendor credit with his business. So he, in the produce industry, extends a lot of credit to the people that buy from him. But people like him are not reporting to credit, so it's not building business credit. So make sure they're reported to the bureaus. Business loans. We've heard of these. We know Akiptan offers them for businesses. Other small native CDFIs and nonprofit lenders offer these. They're specifically used for different loan needs. So you'll want to look at the usage, the terms, the application requirements, because every lender is different and every product is different in their underwriting needs. These will show up as hard inquiries on personal credit reports, oftentimes. So just know that too many inquiries can show up as red flags on your personal credit. Different loan products may have different minimum credit scores. So just work with your lender on these business loans, and these are going to be installment loans typically. So keep that in mind. So talking about SBA-backed loans, they're common among nonprofit lenders. So this is a guarantee on behalf of SBA to help offset losses from unpaid loans from businesses. So depending on the specific loan product, there are other requirements. So that might have minimum credit scores. You might require collateral or not collateral. So definitely talk with your lender on what's out there. These business loans are, like I said, are installments, so they're paid over time as opposed to incurring large interest fees, such as on credit cards. This can be used as working capital for your business if that's what the loan provides, or it could be used to pay off purchases for equipment, purchasing property. So lots of various ways you can utilize business loans, but usually it's that lump sum payment. So something to keep in mind. And lastly, the personal line of credit. So this operates just like a credit card, but it usually has a specific length of time. So I've seen lines of credit, they can be used as like installment credit or revolving. Just depends on the lender and how they issue out their line of credit. Things to keep in mind is that this is used to for businesses to mitigate that ebb and flow. There are large volumes, inventory heavy or supply, getting those heavy supplies, and any short turnaround times. That line of credit can assist with those. Okay. So I know we're coming up on time, so I just wanted to, or we're at time, wanted to pause for any questions that might have come in the chat. And definitely we'll share the slides, so take a look at those. And if you have any additional questions.
Thanks, Stephanie. I don't see any questions. Let me just double check here. Nope, I think you did such a great job and it's very thorough. So I think
there's a lot of information, and Dawn said she'll share the slides. It has a lot of information, and then there are hyperlinks in there. So if you have any questions, late night reading, go through the slides, click on the hyperlinks, and yeah, if you have any questions along the way, I know Dawn dropped my contact information in the chat. Like I said, I'm not a licensed professional with legal services, but I'm happy to answer any questions about credit, accessing credit. Gone through the School of Hard Knocks as well as an entrepreneur, so happy to answer questions. And I know Akiptan is happy to answer any as well.
Yep. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I have just a few closing things to offer. So we have another webinar coming up next month, and it's with INCA, which is the, let me just make sure that I'm getting this correct. Indian Nations Conservation Alliance. They'll be presenting on the 28th of April from 12 to 1 again. And then we also have our Okichanye Scholarship for Native American high school seniors that are graduating this spring. We're offering $21,000 scholarships for those that are pursuing a degree to utilize it in the native ag industry. And folks can reach out to me with any questions. That closes on the 30th of this month. So we're getting real close to that deadline. Yeah, those are just the updates I wanted to offer. And then thank you again, Stephanie, for presenting to our audience today. Our emails are in the chat to reach out to us with any questions that you might have. And this recording will be available on our website within a week, and I'll send out all the slides for it. So thanks again. Have a great day, everyone.